Let me ask you something. How many times have you prayed for something, asked for clarity, for strength, for opportunity, and then the moment you finish, doubt sneaks in, you pray for a breakthrough, and then you immediately start questioning if it's even possible. You ask for guidance, but then you ignore the signs because they don't look the way you expected. You beg for courage, but then you don't take the step that requires it. Here's the truth. Prayer without trust is just noise. When you pray, you are literally speaking into existence what you want, what you need, what you're ready for. But if you don't trust it, you block it. Trusting in your prayers doesn't mean sitting back and waiting for magic. It means aligning your actions with your request. You want peace, then stop feeding the drama. You want strength, then stop telling yourself you're weak. You want opportunity, then step into the room, raise your hand, send the email. Prayer is the starting line, not the finish line. Think about this. Every time you've prayed in the past for something you thought you couldn't survive, didn't you survive it? Didn't you grow through it? You didn't get everything you wanted, but you got what you needed, and that's why you can trust it. Trusting your prayers means acting as if they're already answered, walking with the confidence that what you asked for is already on its way. And when the path looks messy, when it feels uncertain, that's not a sign to panic. That's a sign that the prayer is working on you, stretching you into the person who can handle the answer. So next time you pray, don't just whisper words into the air. Anger them. Stand up. Move differently. Speak differently. Show up as if it's already done. Prayer is the starting line, not the finish line. Too often, we treat prayer like the final step, like the box we check when we've exhausted every other option, and then we sit back waiting for life to suddenly rearrange itself. But the truth is, prayer is not the last thing you do. It is the very beginning of what you're about to build. Think of prayer as the ignition key. You can sit in the car all day long talking about where you want to go, but until you turn the key, nothing moves. Prayer is that key. It starts the engine inside you. It gets your mind aligned, it centers your focus, and it creates a sense of direction. But after the engine starts, you still have to drive. You still have to steer, press the gas, make the turns, and stay awake behind the wheel. When you pray, you're setting an intention. You're declaring out loud or in silence what matters most to you. That's powerful, but it's not complete. Too many people stop there, thinking that speaking the words is the end of the process. The reality is, it's the beginning of responsibility. If you pray for courage, opportunities will show up that scare you, and you'll be expected to act. If you pray for patience, frustrating situations will come to test you, and you'll have to practice calm. If you pray for growth, challenges will arrive that stretch you, and you'll need to lean in instead of retreat. Prayer is not about instant delivery, it's about alignment. You align your thoughts, your desires, and your spirit with something higher, but then you walk it out. It's not meant to replace action, it's meant to fuel action. That's why thinking of it as the starting line changes everything. Imagine running a race. You don't train and show up at the track only to stand at the line, whisper your intention to win, and then refuse to run. You start at the line, you run, you sweat, you push through, and only then do you experience the finish. Prayer sets you at the starting line with clarity, but the race is still ahead of you. When you embrace prayer as a beginning instead of an ending, you shift how you see your own role in your life. You stop waiting passively and start moving actively. You recognize that the prayer is an invitation to participate in what you've asked for. You're not just asking for things to fall into place. You're asking for the strength, wisdom, and direction to play your part in making it happen. That's why so many prayers feel unanswered, when in reality, they're already being answered through the opportunities, nudges, and challenges right in front of you. Doubt cancels what faith initiates. Every time you pray, every time you set an intention or speak a request into the universe, you spark something. That spark is the power of belief, the quiet strength that tells you what you desire is possible. Faith is the force that pushes that spark into motion, that turns the unseen into a path you can walk. But the moment doubt enters, it's like pouring water on that fire. Doubt doesn't just slow you down, it stops the very process you started. You can't pray for peace and then immediately replay every worry in your mind as if your prayer meant nothing. You can't pray for opportunity and then dismiss every open door as too small or not good enough. When you allow doubt to take over, you sabotage the faith that began working the second you opened your mouth to pray. Doubt shows up quietly. It's the voice in your head that whispers, "What if this doesn't work?" It's the hesitation when you know you should act but talk yourself out of it. It's the skepticism that asks, "Why would this happen for me?" Doubt is subtle, but it's powerful, and if you give it attention, it grows. Faith, on the other hand, requires deliberate attention. It asks you to believe before you see, to keep showing up even when there's no evidence, to trust that your prayer is already in motion even if the results haven't shown up yet. These two forces cannot occupy the same space in your mind at the same time. One will cancel the other. When you initiate something with faith, you are essentially saying, "I believe in what I cannot yet see." That statement alone puts you in a different state of mind. You walk differently. You think differently. You speak with more confidence. Faith pulls your energy forward, but doubt drags it backward. Doubt is like planting a seed and then digging it up every morning to check if it's growing. Nothing can flourish under that kind of constant disruption. Faith is planting the seed, watering it, trusting the process, and waiting for the harvest. Every answered prayer begins with faith, but every delayed or blocked prayer often carries the fingerprints of doubt. Doubt convinces you to quit too early, to give up before the breakthrough arrives, to stop expecting good because you can't see immediate proof. The challenge is not whether the prayer is powerful. The challenge is whether you can hold onto faith long enough for the results to unfold. Faith is fragile in its beginning stages, and that's when doubt tries hardest to step in. Right after you pray, right after you dream, right after you declare what you want, doubt will try to argue against it. If you let those thoughts settle, they cancel the very energy you released. It's like hitting the brakes after you've already stepped on the gas. Faith starts the journey, but only trust and persistence can carry it forward without interruption. Align your actions with your requests. When you pray, you are not just speaking words into the air. You are declaring what you want your life to move toward. That declaration is powerful, but it is not meant to stand alone. Words open the door, but actions are what carry you through it. Too often people pray for change but continue behaving the same way. They pray for clarity but never make space for silence or reflection. They pray for strength but keep feeding habits that make them weaker. They pray for opportunity but ignore the work and preparation that would allow them to step into that opportunity. There is a disconnect between what they ask for and how they live, and that gap is where disappointment grows. Alignment means integrity between your prayers and your behavior. If you pray for peace, then you have to choose peace in your responses, even when provoked. If you pray for abundance, you cannot keep operating with a scarcity mindset. If you pray for growth, you cannot resist discomfort every time it arrives. The way you walk must match the way you talk. It's not about perfection, it's about congruence. If your actions are moving in the opposite direction of your requests, then you are pulling against your own prayer. You're asking for one thing but living in a way that invites the opposite. This is why alignment matters. When your actions line up with your prayers, you create momentum. The energy you release in prayer connects to the energy you produce in your choices. They reinforce each other. Your request is not just floating in hope. It's being anchored by evidence. You are showing through your daily decisions that you believe in what you've asked for. You're not just waiting for an answer, you're preparing for it. You're living in expectation, not in hesitation. Think of it this way: prayer sets the destination, but action is the movement that gets you there. If you pray for healing, then feed your body, mind, and soul with things that promote health. If you pray for courage, then take one small, bold step today, even if it scares you. If you pray for wisdom, then seek knowledge, ask questions, and practice discernment. If you pray for opportunities, then position yourself where opportunities can find you. The alignment between your request and your behavior creates a straight path. Without alignment, it's like trying to walk north while asking to arrive south. When your actions contradict your prayers, you create confusion. You send mixed signals to yourself and to the world around you. But when your actions support your prayers, you create clarity. You make it obvious what you're working toward. You put yourself in the right place mentally, emotionally, and practically to receive the very thing you asked for. Alignment is the evidence of belief. It is how you demonstrate that your prayers are not just words you hope for, but intentions you are ready to live out. Trust the process, even when it looks messy. One of the hardest things about prayer is the waiting. You ask, you hope, you believe, and then life doesn't look the way you thought it would. Obstacles appear, delays stretch longer than expected, and sometimes the exact opposite of what you prayed for shows up. In those moments, it's easy to assume nothing is working, that your prayers hit a wall or went unheard. But the truth is the process rarely looks clean or predictable. Growth is uncomfortable. Change is disruptive. Transformation always comes with tension. The mess you see is not a sign that your prayer is failing. It's often the evidence that your prayer is unfolding in ways you can't yet understand. When you pray for strength, you don't wake up instantly stronger. You get situations that require you to use muscles you didn't know you had. When you pray for patience, you don't suddenly feel calm in every situation. You get delays that push you to practice stillness. When you pray for opportunity, you don't always get a perfect door. Sometimes you get closed ones that redirect you toward the right opening. The process works through experiences, challenges, and even setbacks that shape you into someone who can handle the very thing you asked for. Trusting the process requires surrendering your timeline and your idea of how things should happen. We all create pictures in our heads of what the answer should look like, and when reality doesn't match that picture, frustration sets in. But just because it doesn't look like what you imagined doesn't mean it isn't working. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in life are hidden inside detours and disappointments. What feels like a delay might actually be protection. What feels like rejection might actually be redirection. What looks like loss could be the very thing that clears space for what you prayed for to arrive. The mess is part of the molding. Diamonds are formed under pressure. Muscles are built through resistance. Character is developed in the fire. The process refines you so that when the answer comes, you're prepared to carry it, not just receive it. Too many people want the blessing without the preparation, the destination without the journey, the answer without the work. But prayer is not just about what you get, it's about who you become while waiting and walking through the process. There is always more happening than you can see. Just because the surface looks chaotic doesn't mean the roots aren't growing strong beneath. Just because your life feels uncertain doesn't mean your steps aren't guided. The process is shaping, pruning, stretching, and building. It's rarely neat, but it is always meaningful. The key is to stay faithful in the mess, to keep moving forward, to trust that what looks like disorder is actually order being created in ways beyond your understanding. Walk as if your prayer is already answered. When you pray, you set an intention into motion, but how you carry yourself afterward determines how deeply you trust what you've asked for. Too often, people pray for something and then live as though it may never happen. They carry themselves with hesitation, speak with doubt, and act from fear. That contradiction weakens the very prayer they made. Walking as if it is already answered means embodying the confidence, the gratitude, and the posture of someone who believes the outcome is on the way. It means showing up in the world as if what you prayed for is already real, even if you can't see it yet. When you walk this way, you're not faking it, you're aligning with it. If you pray for courage, then you speak and act with the boldness you've asked for. If you pray for healing, you nurture your body and mind as if restoration is happening right now. If you pray for opportunity, you prepare your skills, your mindset, and your readiness as though the door has already opened. This kind of living doesn't wait for proof before moving forward. It moves forward knowing proof will eventually appear. It's a shift from waiting to welcoming, from hoping to expecting. Carrying yourself as if your prayer is already answered changes your energy. People notice confidence before results show up. They respond to the way you enter a room, the way you speak, the way you carry yourself. That energy attracts opportunities that match what you've prayed for. You're no longer approaching life from a place of lack or desperation, but from assurance. You communicate through your choices that you are ready, that you believe, that you're not clinging to if. You're standing in when. This approach also reshapes how you handle setbacks. When you believe your prayer is already answered, you don't crumble at the first obstacle. You see challenges as part of the path, not the end of it. You interpret delays as timing adjustments, not denials. You continue walking with your head up because the conviction inside you is stronger than the noise around you. That conviction influences not only your own behavior, but also the way others see and interact with you. Walking as if your prayer is already answered builds resilience. It teaches you to stay consistent in faith regardless of visible circumstances. It reminds you that the unseen comes before the seen, that belief precedes manifestation. Every step you take in alignment with what you've prayed for is a step that strengthens your trust. It is not pretending. It is living from the reality of faith instead of the reality of fear. It is a daily decision to embody the answer before it arrives in physical form. The act of walking this way creates momentum, and that momentum carries you toward the fulfillment of the very prayer you spoke in the beginning.